Good morning, St. Maarten. What's cooking? February 13th, 2023. Looks like it might be a little rainy, overcast. Hopefully the sun can break through. So let's see what's going to happen today. Let me hold on a minute, see if we have proper connection. Just now I was fighting to get on. So let's see what's happening right now. I'll wait to see if anybody is logging in. Then I know for a fact that we have connection. I will wait for a few seconds, and then if not, I will restart once again. Okay, we seem to be on. So let's start off this morning. Today, like I said, it's the 13th, 2023, episode 66. Now, let me start off by thanking the population of St. Maarten for giving the royal family a warm welcome to our country. Remember, people, this was not a political visit. This was a regular get to know your people in your kingdom for Princess Amalia. So the father and mother accompanied her, and they came down here. And contrary to what many negative thinking press of the Netherlands that came to cover the stories thought, the public of St. Maarten embraced the royal family with open arms. I know not everybody is in agreement with that statement, but the majority of the country were very happy to be able to see the royal family, to be able to speak to the king and queen and to the Princess Amalia, queen to be. So it was a nice gathering, a nice happening. It's not like how we had it when we were growing up, that everybody would line the side of the streets with little flags, but we did have some very nice gatherings at Emilio, at the boardwalk, at the courthouse. So I'm happy for that. I'm very happy. Let me also thank all those that were involved in making this visit a reality. I know it was not such a simple visit as many thought because of the security aspect for Princess Amalia. Remember, there were death threats against her in the Netherlands, so you can't just say, well, she went to the Caribbean, so there's no problem. No, crime moves all over, so they had to make sure that they were there. And everyone else who made it a great happening, thank you all very much. You made your country proud. I'm also happy that the authorities have agreed to allow an autopsy to take place to see what was the cause of death of the late Ozzie Laville. Their family cried out and said, a man can't go into prison healthy and is dead the next day. And I agree that the Justice Minister also went along, and the prosecutors reconsidered their position of no foul play, natural death, to let's see exactly what happened so that the family can get a proper answer, as there were no answers to be given to the family when they asked for it. So thank you very much. I think it shows maturity and it can bring proper closure to a very tragic situation. Bush Road. So we just overcapping it, but I noticed King gone, walk stop. A hope. You see where are you? Cut up and grade off all the asphalt there in front of Kentucky Fried Chicken. If you leave it there long enough, that road will become a disaster just now because it's one of the areas where they have water logging. In the past, when we repaired there, we put a bunch of underground piping to get the water off that's under the road to ensure that the road structure remains well. This should have happened around the area of Quick Bargains and where Eki Richardson's family lives, the late Eki Richardson's family. That area is waterlogged, and as long as you don't put the pipes in it to get it off through the trench there by Quick Bargains, that road is going to continue being a disaster with water coming up. It is not something I want to beat up on anybody for. Maybe there was no money to do this and it was just a quick patch because the king was coming. Quite possible. But again, it's a pity because once you had it open, you should have done the whole operation. You don't open up a man to look inside the room and you see the kidney wrong and you don't fix it. Fix it one time instead of going back in again. Surprise, surprise. We had a question hour on cadastre issues. And not one answer was given basically to all the questions asked, because the Minister of Finance said, in line with proper corporate governance and seeing that cadastre is independent agency because they're a foundation, something, because they don't have no membership, so it's not an association, it's a foundation, that they can't answer the questions on behalf of cadastre because they are operational questions and management should be called in to answer those questions. And when that part of the answer came, I took a lean back and I said, wait, I can't believe the minister just said that. Parliament has no right to call in businesses and foundations. The only people they call in are the ministers to give account. Now, the Minister of Finance is the one on paper responsible for the cadastre. I understand the issue is a very sensitive issue, but it's an issue that has already been resolved, in my opinion, because I think they said the suspension was for a few days and the gentleman is back to work, etc., etc. The answers or the questions that were asked, in my opinion, had a different scope that I had hoped would have been addressed. Not so much the suspension of the director, but the suspension of the other employee and the implications to that suspension, which was problems in cadastre's digital mapping of 25 made-believing being made and then 23 being taken out. And ministers don't wanting to sign building permits on these parcels of land. Now, that is a discussion because that's fraud, in my opinion. Now, that's a discussion you can't just say, well, that's for management to deal with. So in line of good corporate governance, I want to wash my hands. I don't understand that piece because Parliament cannot call in the management of cadastre. It would be like Parliament calling in the OM, or Parliament calling in the airport, or Parliament calling in GEBE. No, they call in the minister, the shareholder representative of these entities. At this point in time, that is the COM. So the Council of Ministers, they're the shareholders representative of all companies and government-owned entities. So you cannot come here and state on the floor of Parliament in line of good corporate governance and blah, 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 because it ain't good. It's wrong. You're putting everybody on the wrong footing, in my humble opinion. I think you should have answered what could have been answered, and the rest in line with good corporate governance or whatever, you don't get into it. I agree with you. You don't get into personal matters, Minister. I agree wholeheartedly with you on that. And that's why I said, not even the suspension of the other gentleman was of interest to me. But what was of interest is why he was suspended. The land issue, because that's now publicly known. A lot of people know what went on in cadastre. A lot of people know that the Minister of Roby said he's signing certain building permits. People bought units already. So how this even went down already is a serious question. So let me go over to another government-owned company. There's this lady working at TLM. The employees know her as the desk lamp. I know her name, but I prefer not to get into the names yet. But I will mention her name today, because I've spoken of this lady before. This lady is of East European descent. Nothing against where she comes from. But the last time I spoke of her is because she was going to take a position, or well, she basically got the position in TLM over a qualified local. The good lady doesn't speak much English. The good lady came here with a Dutch boyfriend who signed for her in the beginning, I understood. I ain't gonna mention his name yet, But in time, if need be, that too will be revealed because that too we have. The thing is this. Talem went through the fixing of her papers recently, not even a year ago, recently. And that would mean, because this lady, and I will discuss this later down in this whole airport scandal now, another scandal, I will discuss what's really happening there because she doesn't have certain rights that she's claiming for. And the Minister of Justice is going to have to give a very precise explanation on the questions I'm going to ask about this later. But I understood that she has gotten a job in Talem with them signing off for her. And now she's going to the airport to work as a new communications director at the airport. Now, I saw this position, this new position being created for the airport because we have a few of them going on like this at the airport. Sometime back there, Mr. Hillman was extended with a year. His position is now being also opened up. What I don't understand is this. Isn't there a policy? Because according to me in the CLA, there's an article that states you do in-house applications first, and if there's nothing in-house, you go outside. That's what I thought was written in the CLA. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I doubt so. So it means that people at the airport would have had first preference. People in Talem, when this good lady was coming, should have had first preference. That's not happening. The problem is this, that I have. This government ran a campaign about you're qualified. Your people, we are qualified. It has become a practice at the airport to only bring in outsiders and not our own. Where is the counterpart for the CFO? Where is the CEO? Now we got a communications director. The project there, listen, they got at least 5-6 jobs done at the airport that they have publicized now only to bring in foreigners. There is a reason why this is happening. And I'll explain that just now. Because it also has to do with the supervisory board of directors at the airport that is in shambles and is looking for 3 new candidates. Check the newspaper of today. You'll notice there's a vacancy for finance, a vacancy for operations, and a vacancy for legal. But we just appointed a legal down there. We just appointed a finance down there. If those left, then something is amiss down there. And that this government is sitting on its backside as shareholder and not doing nothing, only stepping up to the plate when Knops told them, fire Dexter Duncher and get rid of Michael Hyman, otherwise I'm pulling the money. They got into flying gear, put a hole, bring in Franca to fire this one, put new board of directors by the holding, all them gone. All those people move. The question is why? The question is why? Ask the Prime Minister, let her come with another lie, old Pinocchio. Because the amount of lies that this government has been portraying for the last 6 months is deadly. This is worse than a poisonous cobra. And you're not cobra poisonous already. So, be careful. I noticed that the WITU had sent a letter, grievances, and 2-3 days there was no school. And now finally they went back to school because they met with each other and they're going to figure it out. And my question is this: why did we have to have 2-3 days of lost school for the children? Because those are the losers, not the teachers and not the government. While I wholeheartedly support the teachers fighting for what's theirs, the only people that have lost are the children. Because Wednesday, Thursday, they stayed home. There was no school actually, because the teachers held actions from many public schools and even from schools that through boards and so. There were about 120 teachers there, and that's a lot of teachers. There's about 25% of the workforce of teachers, so that's a lot of teachers that did not go to school that Wednesday and Thursday, I believe. So, you know, we could have met faster. They could have done something better than having these teachers not go to school. And writing in the newspaper how unfortunate it is. Why didn't the minister and the prime minister meet with these people? Get these grievances off the table. Discuss them. You don't have to agree with them, but discuss them. Don't just send a letter and cause a whole confusion. Because that's the new modus operandi. Send a letter and see what happens. All right. Now, there was this other article I read about the hospital, and a lot of the cost overrun is being blamed on the inflation, American inflation, 40%. America had an inflation of approximately 40%, or the world had an inflation, and that has now caused that the construction cost of the hospital is over 50%. What has me baffled in this statement, that hospital contract was signed in 2017. That's also the contract that caused Emili to lose his job as Minister of Health. Now you can come 6 years later nearly and tell me an inflation of a year ago, year and a half ago, caused this mess? No, it did not. It might have now built up on it. But this mess started from the Finzo and the Inzo bankruptcy. Inzo was bankrupt, and we allowed them to go over to Finzo to be bought over, and all of that time loss has created that merchandise became more expensive. And you know who biting the bullet for this? We in St. Maarten, while the contractor should be held accountable for this. But typical, we will always allow them to get away with murder. If this was a local contractor, he was bankrupt by now. They were bankrupt. Because did I go after them for this and for that and for that? And look at these boys, they're just telling you point blank. That was an added value from the King's visit, that we finally found out the truth. Because they were lying their backside off down in the hospital. Everybody knew there was 50% over. And mind you, that ain't the end of the story yet, eh? Because they are hoping that the contractor agrees to the contractual adjustment that the hospital made and sent to them to sign. Because if they said, no, it's going to cost another 50 million, then what? Then what? You see, these are the problems that we're being confronted with because of a government that has no clue how to govern. These things are not needed. Yes, there are pandemics. Yes, there was an earthquake in Turkey, and that would have an effect within 30 to 60 days on anything they were exporting. It's going to have a serious effect. So if steel was coming from there and it didn't get put on a boat yet, it will most probably not be put on a boat, depending where that factory was. So again, we got to be careful with these things. I need a better story than telling me the inflation in America caused this, because that's not true. That's truly not true. It might have impounded the matter, but it didn't cause the problem. Parliament's quorums have clearly become a major problem for this government right now. They cannot form quorums. Half the time meetings are called. The 8 that they have must remain there. Can't even get up to go pee, because if the opposition walks out and asks for head count, the government is flat. There's no meeting. Is this the way to govern? Absolutely not. I don't believe in not coming to meetings. I don't believe in not signing up for meetings. As a senator, as an MP, you are paid to attend all meetings. All committees you're part of, you're paid to attend. So, not given quorum cannot be the norm of day. This recently just happened again. The Minister of Justice was there to give an explanation on what's happening with the prisoners, etc. And the morning session went okay. Afternoon session couldn't continue because 3 members were missing. And which 3 members? 2 from the NA, 1 from the UP. Remarkable. Government itself, the government coalition is not giving government quorum. But we talk about governing the country. I don't understand, but hey, maybe I'm not smart enough to understand these political games that they play. It took nearly 6 years, and I'm not only going to blame this present Minister of Education, but also the previous one. 6 years it took to realize, hey, we have companies in St. Maarten that can fix a school. 6 years it took for the minister now to decide to sign a contract after a bid with Windward Roads, a locally held contract, because Martin Luther King School was one of the schools that had to be fixed through the trust fund. It was one of the schools, the whole roof is gone, all the children have been scattered all over, some of them, I believe in Mazda, some of them are down Belvedere, they're scattered all over the place. Finally, they have signed the contract to fix the school, which will take approximately till July. So 5 months, starting today, within 5 months that school is repaired. 5.5 years, they didn't do it. 5.5 years, they didn't do it. That is sad. That is sad, and it shows the love for education from this government. Clearly, I can't give it no other way. I cannot give it no other way. Because this could have been fixed a long time. A long, long time ago. It could have been fixed. We could have found that money and done that. Get the children back into the educational system. I missed last week the stakeholders meeting on moving towards an integrated solid waste management on St. Maarten. It is this year. This was the document that was shared, and they wrote an article. There were some 90 stakeholders there. I would love to hear the stakeholders, their opinion, and you know who they were. But some of the stakeholders that were there were people that were well versed in the waste management and the trajectory government had from 2016-17 onwards. Then came Hurricane Irma that created a disaster on the landfill. There were serious fires. There was an investigation. I was accused of taking bribes and allowing the fires. Hopefully today, this afternoon, when I am in courts and the witnesses are gearing up to speak, we will see who was lying and who wasn't lying. And we'll see what I really did. Because when you have judges that hear ghosts speak in courts, you do get problems. And that was one of my problems. The ghost started. The judge was hearing somebody speak that nobody else heard. And put that on paper, put pen to paper on that. And then talk about how we forge in documents. When the clerk start to do it, then we're in trouble, eh? But let me get back to this report. Because I read this draft report. And this draft report is basically something that was written back in 2018 by people like Lewis Brown, Mark Williams, myself, and a VNG consultant. I think he had his own company. I'm not even sure. I don't want to mention his name because I don't think that's relevant. We wrote about the circular economy. And they refer to them, because this draft is written off of the way forward, the roadmap to waste, all 2018 documents. Nothing, no time to waste, the roadmap, waste management, and then a stakeholders meeting now. It can't be serious. You cannot be serious. But you know what it doesn't have? A budget. It doesn't say what it's going to cost. They're talking about it, but not one word in the 9-page document of what this is going to cost us. Well, I can tell you, the last numbers they had, they wanted nearly 100 million for a waste to energy plant. One that MP Emmanuel, those days minister, brought in from Canada, vetted by HBN law on all the legalities, approved by the Council of Ministers for 70 million. It wouldn't have cost us $1 other than a public-private a power purchase agreement, a PPA, and delivery of garbage. And in there, that was 26 US cents per kilowatt hour. Today we are still paying GEBE, and we're going to continue paying GEBE for a few years yet, 30 to 35 cents US per kilowatt hour. And they then turned around and said to us, but if you all don't want us to touch the hill, we can do it for 15 or 16 US cents per kilowatt hour. This was shut down, people. Today, they come in and saying it will cost us 100 million. And I'm saying us because the trust fund ain't paying for that. St. Maarten gonna pay for that through thick or thin. They're gonna have to figure out how they're gonna get that 100 million. When you start talking about the recycling, the reuse, the remanufacturing and all that nice things, they still can't put a MRF up there. They can't put a sorting facility up there. They keep talking about it, but they're not doing it. We are 5.5 years further. 5.5 years further. The investigation with the landfill started in 2018, 4.5 years ago. And still nothing done. Who you gonna blame? You're continuously blaming Camper and the little boys from Sucker Garden for the failures of the landfill? Or you're going to look in a mirror and say, I had no clue what I was talking about, and I allowed a couple of people to just make a mockery out of the landfill and keep us like clowns dangling on a line? Because when you start to take fault, we might have an opportunity to move forward. But yeah, what it is, it is. Now this article, the grid market, St. Maarten and the IRP signed an MOU, and they're ready for investors. Now, again, the IRP, that is the Island Resilience Partnership, that they signed a public-private partnership to transition St. Maarten to a clean, resilient, and affordable energy generation. You hear the word resilient? So that word resilient is exactly what our NRRP plan stands for, the National Recovery and Resiliency Program. And that's what the trust fund was going to do. Create a resiliency within our utilities. So what's the role of the NRPB, the World Bank, in this matter? Because this group of people, Grid Market, which is a branch off of Hurricane Katrina that hit the New York area, I think in 2005, if I'm not mistaken myself, they came up to see how we can make an infrastructure of a country, looking at its topographical areas, looking at its utilities, etc., etc. They came together with EarthX, which was a philanthropy of, oh God, of a partner that put a lot of money in it, philanthropy. And they came up with this, and they went to the country of the island of Palau, and they started there. So I went to their website to do a little more research. What is this? Who are they? And there were 3 testimonies on their website. And guess who the first one was? Our Prime Minister. She's one of the testimonies, how great it is. Because they're saying how this is a proven technology. But it's only been in practice for 5 years. Anybody who has a little savvy in technology knows that proven technology doesn't start before 10 years. You don't say proven technology if it hasn't been in practice for 10 years. This has not been in practice. I'm not going to shoot it down yet. I'm not going to do that. We're going to continue doing a little more research. But again, the goal of this partnership is to amplify climate action and scale climate solutions. So they want to drop emissions, the carbon footprint of the island, by going into alternative energies. Solar, wind, for example, because those are cleaner on emissions. Like waste to energy would be a great one for us to get rid of the dump, but by them, it's a little different of a footprint because they are looking at blocking the 1.5 degree increase in temperature in the world, which will create a serious climate problem for us with rising seas, because it will affect the low-lying islands in the Caribbean for sure. But again, this is basically what this entails a little bit. And again, like I said, one thing we don't have that others might have is time. Because we have low-lying areas. Nature Foundation told St. Maarten's people already, places like the lowlands, places like Simpson Bay, Kimsha Airport, they're going to go blank. They're going to go underwater because they're so low-lying in the next 50 years if we continue the way we are going. And it has just accelerated now because they have realized that the way they were making the calculations was not the right way. So we might have a bigger problem than we anticipated. Now, how are they doing all of this? When it comes to the national energy transformation, the IRP utilizes grid markets, predictive analytics, mapping technologies, and competitive marketplace to design, develop, and deploy distributed energy resources for island nations. So this whole signing an agreement with IRP and grid market is the same. They are the same. They are one and the same because IRP uses grid market. So had you signed with IRP and not with grid market, it wouldn't have made a difference. It wouldn't have made a difference. But it's interesting that they signed with both of them independently in this MOU. But again, I realized that the Prime Minister said GEBE played a key role. I want to use the word key role in this matter. Anybody with a little common sense would know that GEBE is one of the most unstable companies in St. Maarten for the mere fact that they have had 2.5 years of turbulency in management with temporary managers. So how could they have been a key stakeholder when every minute management is changing? So whose vision was being carried by GEBE? This naturally made me pick up the phone and try to find people in GEBE that I believe might have some sort of idea of what's going on. And let me say this. The answers were mind-blowing because I got so many questions from them that I decided it is not right if I don't ask these questions here publicly today so that they can be taken up by any other MP, any media, and asked at the press conferences. Hopefully, if they can answer, if they're allowed to answer for GEBE now, it would be great. Because remember, they are talking about fixing the energy policy. The energy policy is going to be turned into law. But what about the electricity concession? That's fixed. And you can't go and change that. You can't just open the energy concession and change it. The energy concession said that GEBE should have been doing alternative energy for the past 12 years. Because you signed it in 2010. And by 2015, they had to be fully operational with an X amount of percent on alternative energy. From 2015, mind you, there were bids done in 2010, It failed in 2011. 2012, there was a national bid done again by the then Minister of Romy, name not relevant. Then we got a new partner to work with in 2014. That one was thrown out in 2015, 16. Another one was brought in 2017. That one was thrown out 2018, 2019. Mind you, I'm talking about bids and national supported things by Council of Ministers and governors and all kind of thing. And now here, suddenly, you have grid market that has no proven technology, because that was one of the critical things we wanted. Proven technology. None whatsoever. They just have their mapping devices, their stuff that they deployed in America, they made in America, and they bring it here, and we're going to do it as if it's ours. The thing is this: when I got into a discussion with GEBE, I asked them, but you all ain't doing the solar? They said, but we had solar. We offered solar to this government. And they shut it down. There was a bank loan from Winter Island Bank to pay for the solar. And they shut it down. These same people in government. But we talking about an integrated electricity policy network, whatever you want to call it. And GEBE is a key role player. But GEBE had things in place. GEBE is talking about buying an engine right now. The Minister Tiat is talking about building a LNG plant. What do you call it? A filling station. To have a filling station, you need a plant. There were some presentations in Parliament when I was chairing the meeting with LNG. You see, and they clearly state, though, in this one here, oh, no, those things are for lower down. They're not for now. Right now, they're looking at solar. But GEBE had solar. Sol presented to the Council of Ministers solar, a solar plant that they're willing to put in the fresh pond, if need be. But these things are not part of this. They don't want to debate it yet or discuss it yet, but at least if you're going to come out and make a statement in the press, then come with something more than just, oh, we signed an MOU. And then when you read the media report on it, you get lost. Because let me ask you, or let me tell you all what the questions were that came from GEBE people. One, how is it that grid market doing the study and the energy policy and also busy seeking the investment? Will they also be the execution of the renewable projects? Can they create work for themselves then? That's a conflict of interest. Was there a tender process done for the study, or was grid market solely approached? I have no clue. I'm sure the Prime Minister would have an answer for that. The investment to be made was done on a tender? No clue. In the past 2 years, GEBE had 4 temporary managers. How was it possible to have had sound discussions with the temporary managers? Because every 6 months they were gone. Were the workers of NVGB involved? What they believe to know is that the managers were never in a meeting with any of the temporary managers to discuss this so-called grid market discussion. So even if they spoke to a temporary manager who had no damn, because let's be clear, let's be very honest on something here. Who were the temporary managers? Temer, Ms. Daniel, and Dembrook. None of the three has any idea of the networks on this island, of the electricity production, the distribution methodologies, etc. They can't just come there and sit down and do as if they know it all. They would have had to talk to people within GEBE in the know-how. In my opinion, for example, the power plant chief, the distribution man, the people in planning to see what's going to be the expansion in the country, etc., etc. But none of these people, according to what I'm reading here, were spoken to. So, what kind of key role are we talking about? Or was it that they played a key role in providing information? So maybe they did that. They gave information and now that's a key role. When that's not really a key role. That's just some data for analytical purposes. As a government, you all are very well aware of GEBE's plans for renewable. A project was presented on the 2 megawatt solar along the pond field over the already existing parking lot, which would also provide shaded parking. Why was this blocked? This is to the Council of Ministers. Why did you, as the Council of Ministers, not ensure the loan of the Winter Island Bank and Pacific Life were approved to ensure renewables and the SAP upgrade? And this is a nasty dig, which would have prevented a hack on the GEBE system. That's right. The Council of Ministers that is sitting here is the ones that are liable for the hack that took place in March last year. You heard it right. You heard it here. This is a question I got. And it makes all the sense. Because the SAP had to be upgraded, but it didn't get a loan from Pacific Life, nor from Winter Island Bank. The financiers are lined up, the Prime Minister stated. Are there any local financiers lined up like APS, WIP, Vida Nova, or are all the financiers foreign? Wasn't this Council of Ministers against Pacific Life as foreign and insisted GEBE sit with APS in 2020? In the terms of power purchase agreement, is there one drafted and presented to GEBE? What would be the tariff being proposed? Will this be a 20, 25, or 30-year power purchase agreement? Now, this question, this is what broke the camel's back in the last agreement with Enviro Green and GEBE. They said that the power purchase agreement was quite expensive and it wasn't properly discussed with the management of GEBE the way it should have been done. And again, I don't want to get into too much of details. I was part of those meetings too. I had my differences of opinion with management of GEBE, but you know what? You can't cry about it no more. Station passé, we got to move on. But now we have an opportunity to do good again towards our people. Let's make good use of it. With GEBE, now, which properties are being proposed for solar parks? This should be known if there are plans for investors and solar parks. And I just spoke about the one from Sol. What about Sol? Is Sol part of this whole grid market? With GEBE, so very unstable due to the lack of good governance, how is it possible to drive a company in a long-term PPA without stability in the company? All I can tell you all at GEBE is y'all better look for proper representation and some good lawyers, because the way this government going, they're going to torpedo or you into the ground before you know it. Why can't GEBE 2 megawatt solar project not be executed with local financing, which was ready to go with a local bank? Now, you see, these 14 questions came from GEBE people, people in the know. I'm not talking about a car mechanic down in the plant, you know. I'm talking about people that know what they're talking about. This is a very dangerous matter, people. It's a very, very dangerous matter. Nothing against nobody yet. But these questions, they raise a lot of red flags. The review I did of the so-called proven technology raises some serious flags. Not saying the people are bad, not saying they have the wrong intentions or good intentions. I'm just saying what is being sold is not what it is. And that's not right. And if you want to debate it, Madam Prime Minister, anytime you're ready. Any place. CAREX. While the government is busy with a major cleanup in a few districts, it seems that there are more cars coming onto the roads every day and reappearing in the same districts that are being cleaned. The question we have to start asking ourselves is, where are all these cars coming from? Because if you clean up St. Peter's, you pick up 50, 60 cars, and 2 weeks later, there's another 50 cars there. The question is, where are these cars coming from? It's, I'm not trying to imply nothing yet, but I'm going to tell you how it is. Check. When you see cars coming on the road, check the directions they're coming from. It should tell you something. You see, our landfill, you don't have to pay. The other ones you have to. That's all I'm going to leave with that car wreck thing. But I want to make a proposal, because there are so many car wrecks in all the districts in St. Maarten, not in only some, in all. I would like to propose that effective January 1st, 2024, we create in our ordinance any car that is imported into St. Maarten, any car, there's a $250 fee for cleanup. It means when you have had the best of your car, you can bring it to the landfill by the government, and they will have it scrapped and handled appropriately. That way, we won't be having cars all over the road being stripped. No. We'll take care of it for you. You don't have to dump it in the bush. We'll take care of it for you as government, and we will ensure that it is properly discarded. We have to just simply do that. Right now, that's what the government, we call them the Project Bureau, they're working with the people that are doing the car wrecks here in St. Maarten, and they're paying them approximately $250 to strip the car, to clean it from all the oils and take out the glass, plastics, and so crush the metal, get the metal off the island, and some of the others, see if you can get them recycled. Otherwise, they're going to end up in the landfill once again. But glass can be recycled, plastic can be recycled, you know, so there is enough we can do with it. And if you charge the $250 per car, and we import a lot of cars here every year, we can create a proper discarding of cars moving forward come 2024. So I just want to make that proposal. Think about it. We have a lot of work to do yet, because remember, it's not only cars we have alongside the road, we also have a lot of old heavy equipment creating a lot of problems. For us, big equipment, I saw them moving some backhoes there over the road a few days ago there. That's solid steel, so whomever had that one, they gonna sell, they get a few good dollars for that tonnage. The hospital. What really happened with the hospital? Because it was only during the King's visit that the population of St. Maarten found out that the hospital is going to be 50% more expensive than it already is. The last time we heard that there were some contractual issues and they were going to deal with it, and Van Hofland made a €7 million injection into the hospital, so approximately 15 million guilders injection into it, because she didn't want the trust fund monies to be moved and other projects to suffer because of the hospital's shortcomings. But that doesn't seem to be enough, because it is only when the King was here and nobody wanted to lie to the King that they said, oops, it's going to be about 50% more. The King himself said 50. He couldn't believe what he was hearing, because nobody knew what it truly was. Well, nobody. The hospital knew very well what it was. The board of directors knew very well what it was. And I'm sure the government knew very well what it was. Because the government allowed the monies of the trust fund, because remember, the government has somebody on the steering committee that can veto any monies being given to a project. Anyone. They have that right. St. Maarten has that right. So when St. Maarten agreed to inject 25 million into the hospital, $25 million, they have a say. And when things go crazy like this, they can come in and say, you know what? What's happening? Please explain us a little better. What's happening? Because something is crazy. But you know what I find remarkable? The hospital, Finzo, the airport, Ballasneda. 2 European companies, 2 projects, 2 major overruns, 2 milking the trust fund, and nobody says nothing. Strange? No, not really. That's common thievery. That's how they do this. Meerwerk. This is a common denominator. And nobody going to say a word. Nobody going to say a word. Mark my words. Hook, line, and sinker. This is done. Maya, it is what it is, right? But I got a bigger problem, and you all should have the same problem I got. And that is a lot of money from our pension funds, be it SFV, be it Villanova, be it INYA, be it APS, is involved in that hospital as financiers. They're involved. They went in big. And now that money is up in the air. Because if they don't get the money to refinance and get another 50 million to continue building the hospital, a lot of people stand a big chance to lose their money. What happens then? You see, because we all talk about only the hospital costs a lot of money. But what happens if they lose that money? Because the hospital ain't finishing. Look at Curaçao's hospital. Look at the disaster. It's bankrupt already. The Curaçao hospital bankrupt right now. It didn't even open a year. That's because of the heavy overruns. Most probably when some of us getting ready for pension 7 years from now, there will be no money in the pension fund anymore because of these type of games. Because all these overruns are going to kill these pension funds in this country. But maybe that was the plan all along. I don't know anymore. Because there are too many coincidences in these things. Too many. And after a while, coincidences become pattern. And that's what's scary. Remember, from day one, this project at the hospital had a serious problem when they had to pay out VAMET. They paid them out $1 million or something to hush them out and go. People just forget. I don't forget so easy. Now, they fought to get his Vinso and Inzo in. They were bankrupt. They were taken over by Inzo. And now we're 50% further. And now it's because of the inflation in America. What kind of nonsense is this? Just simply bad management. Bad project management. Clauses in the project were not rock solid. And I am amazed that the trust fund, so the World Bank, they didn't check these contracts, but just dumped $25 million into it. And then tell you, in other projects, yeah, but because you didn't follow our tender procedures, we can't give you the money for it. We can't do this, we can't do that. But here you piss away $25 million in the hospital, another $70 million in the airport, and there's nothing you can say. You are incompetent. That's what it says. That's what it has to say. Not if you all know it. This is a joke. It's a complete joke. St. Maarten buildings are going up left, right, and center. Not 1 story, not 2 stories, 3, 4, 5 stories. How come they ain't suffering from the inflation? How come they ain't suffering from the war in the Ukraine? This is crazy, people. We cannot continue talking the way we're talking when we're realizing that what we are talking is a lie. You know, I think the government should call in their respective healthcare providers, pension plan providers, and ask them, what's next? Where do we go from here? Because remember, these loans were granted under very specific conditions, very specific loan conditions. And those loan conditions have changed. And, you know, I don't want to sound too negative, but I always get a bad feeling in my stomach when you see these things playing out this way. And remember, the pension fund already went make an investment some time ago there, a few years back, that caused the RST to go kick down doors from 2 people in St. Maarten and Curacao. Because they said the loan wasn't backed properly, etc., etc. Now, I don't know what's going on here anymore, because you can't have a 50% increase in a project and the government isn't saying anything. The trust fund doesn't have money to give. So where's this money going to come from? From the financiers again? That means that their liquidity once again is going to be dumped into this hospital that doesn't seem to be showing any signs of life. I think it was MP Emmanuel said it was the most expensive foundation ever laid in the Caribbean, and I agree with him. Not only in St. Maarten, the Caribbean. But you see, we always speaking about integrity, transparency, and good corporate government. But I think we need to stop using those words for a while in government until we get real clear on what we mean with transparency. Because when cadastral questions were asked, they said good corporate governance, we can't say nothing, they can't do this. What we mean with integrity, are we there really for the people? Because it took them 6 years to just put back on a school roof. That could have been done 5 years ago. You understand? So good corporate governance, I even talk about it because it doesn't exist. Every time the corporate council gives an advice, they throw it through the window and they put their stooges there. So please, let us not talk about these things. I think we are disrespecting each other's knowledge when we talk and use those big words. Again, this isn't about the person, you know. Because people say, oh, you're so hard on certain people. I have nothing against nobody, not even the good minister of Romy. Personally, I have nothing against the good man. The man is a good man, good husband, good father, but a horrible politician, a horrible person to run this country. That's my fight. And people think that it's not personal. For me, politics is not personal. Yes, the old generation used to make it personal, but not for me. If you ain't good, you got to go. If the ombudsman said that there was a major problem with a tender, and we go in there and we vote party lines to keep somebody in government, then we got an integrity problem, yes. Then don't ask for the integrity chamber to go. Give it more money. It needs to do its job. Because we are not Antigua. I am not a saint, you know, I've made mistakes in my life. But the one thing I am not is a hypocrite. I will man up and confess my sins. I don't need to be sitting in church singing hallelujah all day. I have my moments with my master. And so should you. But when it comes to government, when it comes to the people's business, it cannot be personal. It's strictly business. Go ask Julian Rolox what I mean with that. It's strictly business. Because that was his program, that he tried to educate people how to deal with finances, how to deal with your life financially. Because it was business. It is not about the person. Like it or not. We all have our faults. But sometimes, learn from it for God's sakes. It really takes us a long way. Tax reform. I want to go look at this because last week, Wednesday, I believe it was, there was a meeting from the Finance Committee where the Minister of Finance made an attempt to present the government's thoughts on how the tax reform should be done and phased out over the years. There were no timelines really given, making it, in my opinion, a never-ending story because there's no closure. Had he said within 2 years, you know, then you know, okay, hey, within 2 years, you can look for this, you can look for that. But that wasn't really given. There were a lot of measures that they spoke about, but they weren't really truly discussed going down into it and stating what plans they had. There was no in-depth story to it. Let me put it that way. There were many various taxes that were mentioned, and and I liked some of them, because basically how they were going to allow, how they were going to stop allowing certain groups to abuse the country by getting tax holidays or being exempted from TOT while others are being bled to death to pay their taxes and are not exempted from TOT. I didn't hear anything though about how we're going to stop the bleeding for the seniors. I didn't hear anything about the tax relief or any sort of relief, for a matter of fact, for the seniors or the less fortunate or the minimum wage earners. Look, that the government doesn't really want to move TOT is strange to me. I understand where they're playing with it, but it's stupidity. TOT has a triple up effect on the price. And the Now Party that I am with, and I'm one of those that are working this avenue very hard, is strongly looking at an import duty instead of the TOT. The import duty is across the board. Everybody pays the import duty, because if you buy anything on Amazon, you're paying the 8%. And you're buying it at Amazon for two reasons. One, choice. Two, price. So it might be cheaper, and you might have more choice. And again, that's your free right. Look, if government was for their businesses, anybody importing from Amazon would charge you 20%. Because I too need to protect the businesses of St. Maarten as government. Because the businesses of St. Maarten, they pay taxes, they employ, they do everything. And you have a right, again, listen carefully, you have a right to buy in Amazon or eBay or wherever you want. But at the same time, the government has an obligation to take care of its economy and protect the economy from forces like Amazon and eBay. We have to. Because if you don't, then why have stores? Why have people working in stores if you're still going to buy it there because you're going on Amazon? So you see, you don't make it cheaper for people to import, you make it more expensive when they want to privately import. I'm not talking about businesses, is it? If we do the 8% import duty, we can synchronize with the French side, because they are waiting on the Dutch side government to go over there and sign. 8% on both sides. So they make a difference if you import it on the Dutch side or the French side, it's 8%. Nothing will change when it comes to that. Now the French side also has a 4% service tax in restaurants. Maybe that's something they want to look at. If you got money to eat in the restaurant, you got money to pay for the service. That's how I see that. But again, we need to look at the import duty tax and get away from the TOT. TOT is not good for this country. Never was, never will be. But there were a few more things that caught my eye. While they were in the meeting, I heard an MP say, yeah, he just understood that every time a yacht leaves St. Maarten, it's 200 or 300 and something thousand a week. And where's that money going? And should get a crack at it. I started to laugh. I said, I agree with you. Mind you, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You know why? Because we're going after the people now that have homes here, rent out the homes through Airbnb, etc. So they have an asset on island and they are making use of the asset to make money. So you should pay tax is on the location where the asset is. With a boat, that's different. Because the asset is not in St. Maarten making the money. It goes through that bridge and it goes through the Caribbean. And that's where that money is made. So if you think you're going to see any of that money, MP, probably go smoky pipe. Because it's worse. It's worse than that. Cruise ships come into St. Maarten and they sell an island tour on board for $60. And they pay the local bus tour companies $15, $20. That's $15, $20 is what's taxed. And then wherever the tour companies go, if they take them to the beach and there's a lunch package included, they pay for that separately, or they pay for that on the cruise too, whatever. Those monies go to Miami. They're not taxed by the local government. While, listen carefully, there's a service being rendered. And for that service, they pay. They pay $20, $30. If they go on the yachts, $50. I don't know. But they pay for the service. But the monies charged for that service are 3 times as much on the ship. You're not going to see that money. You're not going to. That's been going on like that for 40 years. Ain't gonna change. So again, wishful thinking. I had a good laugh when I heard you say it, because I said you don't understand the concept of it. But okay, at least I hope I explained it a little better now that you understand it. Let's get into the gambling tax, because I did like how the minister said we're going to tax the winnings of people. Casinos and lotteries will be taxed moving forward. However, will the used funds be allowed to be subtracted from your income? So if you're going to tax the winnings, I win $500,000 in Lance Lottery. I bought all year my 35 guilders or 50 guilders or whatever it costs, and it costs me, let's say, 400 guilders a year, 500 guilders a year. Am I allowed to subtract that from my taxes? The answer is no. So if I lose for the whole year, I ain't win no money, may I subtract? The answer is no. So when we start to tax the gambling, how does that work? Now, in the Netherlands, this is done very simple. There's a law. And in the Netherlands, it's called the land-based gambling tax, or about 29%. You pay about 29% on your winnings in the casino. You win 1,000 euros, they're taking off 290 euros, you're getting 710 euros in your hand when you need a casino. The casino passes on the tax to the government, no issues about that. For slot machines, there's a little different regulation that's called the gross gaming revenue, the GGR, and that floats between 18 and 30% on in-house winnings, etc., etc. Now, why am I saying these things? Because in St. Maarten, they don't exist. The only thing that exists in St. Maarten, I believe at this point in time, is that you pay a 10% when you do a raffle. And as the Lions Club, we just do raffles. So when we raffle in something, we get a permit by theatre, I think it is, and the day before the raffle or the day of the raffle, we have to show how much tickets we sold. Let's say we had 5,000 tickets and we charged $10 a ticket. That means we made $50,000. We have to pay 10%, so we pay $5,000 to government. And the other $45,000 you pay your car, and the rest you have as a fundraising for the club. That's how it's regulated here. When there are big shows in the Carnival Village, I used to do that with the Sky's the Limit, we would have to pay 10% to the tax office. They come by the gate, they count the income, and you pay 10% of all the tickets that they collected based on the prices that they were sold. This is how it is right now. There's no tax on your winnings at this point in time, and I believe the casinos pay no turnover tax, the lotteries pay no turnover tax, they just pay a fee, a flat fee. I think lotteries is 15,000 a month, casinos is 50,000 guilders a month, if I am not mistaken myself. Which means at this point in time, we have 12, 13 casinos, we we make any place between 650,000 guilders a month, or approximately 8.5 million guilders a year on casino license income. That's it. That's it. That's how much money we make. The amount of money going through the casino is a whole different story. But again, I want to state here again, I hope the law also looks at the value of standalone casinos. These have only led to two things: gambling addiction and disruption of families. Because people go in there and throw away their whole salary. And then you have social problems on the rise, because there's nothing to eat at home. Men and women prostituting themselves in bathrooms of casinos to get a $5, $10 to continue playing. This is reality. This is what's happening. But we sit down and we do absolutely nothing, because 12 years we are country St. Maarten and we still don't have a gaming board. And every time you ask, there's some kind of excuse that somebody will give you why they can't have it. And we're working on it and we this. Please stop, man, stop. If you can't do it, move from the function. This includes civil servants, because they too are serious bottlenecks when it comes to the gaming board. I am tired of standing by and looking around and seeing how these casinos are destroying this population. Lottery booths are popping up like mushrooms in this country. We have, what, I think we have now a third, a fourth lottery. I mean, how much lottery you could sell? It looked like that's the best selling thing on the island, lottery. The country is not doing well. We put a lot of money into these games of chance. You go and you look at Western Union and DHL or whichever ones they all are, money leaving the country all day, and we wonder why our economy is struggling. Because we allow certain things. If we have controlled gambling, because I don't have a problem if somebody wants to go gamble, somebody wants to buy lottery, you got to control it. And if we are not going to control it, then don't do it. That's one of the reasons why many countries don't have gambling. Because it's a very difficult something to control. And once you don't control it, people will abuse it. And in St. Maarten, there's a picture perfect case for that. I also noticed that we're going to be taxing vehicles on weight. I think that's great. But I also think we should tax them on value. If somebody could buy an $80,000 car, they can pay $2,000, $3,000 road tax. That car can go over 10 years. You pay road tax $3,000, that's $30,000. The car was $80,000. After 10 years, they're throwing away the $80,000. Because they ain't worth it no more. So, in other countries, we don't only tax on weight, they also tax on value. Luxury cars are taxed much higher than the regular little I-10. And that should be here. And that money, though, should go to the road fund so that the proper roads and infrastructure can be maintained in this country. Instead of us talking about it, let's do it the right way. So, again, I agree wholeheartedly with taxing the vehicles on their weight, because heavy equipment should pay much more than they're paying right now, because they put a much bigger strain on the roads, especially when you pull in those cement trucks full of cement. They should be calculated when they're full of cement, and that price is what you charge them, not just the empty weight of the truck. Because when they fill it with cement, that 10 ton, that's extra 10 tons there on the road. That's how we should go about it. Again, the proposed sin tax. That is the one on tobaccos, sugar products, so products that do you harm, alcohol, cigarettes. We don't tax it because we say we're duty free. That's all nonsense now. These monies from these taxes should be put into a wellness program managed, for example, by SFV, not the government, because it will never reach its destiny. Once it hit that big black hole, until we got proper financial management under control, have entities do these things, or maybe the Maarten Development Fund, that they run these wellness programs. And that way we can do certain things and we can move forward. Again, these are proposals from government and I can find myself in some of them, and I'm not going to just shoot them down because they came from government. If they're good, I'm willing to go along with you. If they're not good, I'm going to tell you why. So, again, what I did enjoy was the stakeholders meeting, because the minister said he had a meeting with the stakeholders, and their primary thing was not to introduce any other taxes on top of TOT, because they're not removing TOT. Government told them they ain't removing TOT. And I think that was unfortunate, because government should have spoken also. So if we move TOT, would you be open to A, B, C, D? Because saying you want to put a VAT, saying you want to do this, saying you want to do that, but you're not moving TOT, you're going to kill everybody. You're going to kill everybody up front. So again, I don't know how that's really going to work. But again, they were talking about fiscal unity on TOT. I think that's a joke, because the fiscal unity, the business is asking for that. Fiscal unity means if I have 5 companies, whichever company loses money, I can take that from the companies that make profit. The businesses want to go a step further. They're saying, listen, we gonna pay TOT basically in the sense of, I might pay to you now, but if I lost money when I am consolidating the companies, all the companies together, and I pay too much TOT, you gotta give me that money back. That's fiscal unity. That can cause the country a lot of problems and money. So don't even entertain that nonsense. Get rid of TOT. TOT has a trickle down effect on all of us with prices. So if we get rid of it and you have the import duties, once it's in, it's in. It doesn't continuously, because everybody has to pay TOT. So because that's a sales tax. If you made money or not, TOT is like a criminal, because your business sold $5,000. Your payroll is $5,000. Your goods of services was $1,000. So in total, you got to pay. You need $6,000. You made $5,000 in sales. You got to pay 5% off of that. So you go stay with $4,750 instead of the $5,000. So you have just lost $250 that you needed. So it is a sales tax irrespective to your cost. That's what the business is saying with fiscal unity. No, let me get all my costs done first in all my businesses. And then, if I made money, sure, on that I'll pay TOT. On that money I'll pay TOT. But that's not the way it is. TOT is a sales tax. That's how simple it is. You sell, you pay. Because that's how the law is. So I'm saying get rid of that law, because if I buy a box of chicken by Prime and that box has in 6 and I sell it in my store to 6 different people, Prime paid 5% on that chicken and I am paying 5% on that chicken when I sell it. That's 10% already on the same chicken. While if it comes in by the harbor and there is an 8% import duty, that's it. Everybody just saved 2% already. And there was no work done to it. This is what we have to look at. This is how we have to understand this to move this forward. Property tax was another thing that they brought up in the transfer. So they want to do the property transfer tax. It's a great one, because we can access a lot of money. Now, remember, nowadays, a lot of people put properties in companies. So when they sell the company, they're not paying a transfer tax because they're not selling the property. They're selling the company that has a piece of property in it. Because the property is in the name of the company. So you're not going to get that money. That was a way to circumvent the taxes. Economical rights. To sell economical rights is not against the law. Some people in Maarten just don't know that yet, and the courts didn't want to tell them anything, but Professor Kuhneman said it very clearly. Economical rights is not taxable. So people sell the economical rights of their property and remain the owner at all times. Or state in the deal that 10 or 15 years from now, after you have rented from me, you become the judicial owner. And only then is sales tax transferred. But in the meantime, for 15 years, monies have been earned and they are not taxable. Or you have to ensure that you change the law and you state that economical monies derived, taxes derived from economical rights are taxable. And then you start to close the loopholes. But it is, look, the law is not bad. The law has a lot of loopholes and they need to be closed. That's the work that has to happen there. And if you don't do that, you'll have a problem. Now, I believe that wage tax has to be lowered, and once we lower the wage tax, we can do a lot for this country because we give them buying power. Now there's a table, because remember, we have said that a minimum wage is not what we should be looking at in Maarten, but we should be looking at a livable wage. Let's take, for simplicity's sake, that the livable wage is 3,500 guilders for an adult, 2 adults and 2 children. That would mean that 42,000 guilders a year is a livable wage. That should not be taxed. That should not be taxed. That is 70% of the population of Maarten right now. You heard me? 70% of the population of Maarten right now is in that bracket of 3,500 guilders a month or 42,000 guilders a year, and they should not be taxed. Between the 42,000 and the 60,000, you should tax about 10%. Between the 60,000 and the 80,000, you should tax about 15%. Between the 80,000 and the 120,000, you should tax about 20%. Between the 120 and the 180,000, you should tax 25%. And anything above $100,000, 180,000 guilders, you pay 30%. All pensions, all first line pensions should not be taxed. So if you worked all your life for a pension, it should not be taxed, no matter what. And yes, you might have gotten away when you were younger, building your pension, that you were able to subtract it from the taxes. Fine, pull a line, move on. Move on, because 10%, 15% cost of living from then to now, 20% cost of living from then to now. Your pension didn't grow with that exponentially. So stop making a mockery out of it with people. Pull a line, stop taxing the people on their pension. If a person has 2 pensions, because their husband had a pension too and now they're getting a widower's pension, as long as the pension does not reach the livable wage, it's not taxable. So your first pension, let's say if your first pension was 2,000 and your second one was 1,000, that means you have 3,000 guilders, they can't pension you. They can't tax you, sorry. Now let's say your first pension was 4,000, your second pension was 1,000. Now you have 5,000. The first 4,000, they cannot tax you. They cannot tax you. The second 1,000, now it's 5,000. So now you have to say 5,000 times 12, that's 60,000. In the table, you will be taxed 10%. So off of the 6,000, you have to pay 6,000 guilders. You got 12,000 extra a year. 6,000 of that will go to the tax office. That's how simple that calculation can be done. You don't have to become a rocket scientist to do this, but you cannot tax the first 5,000. You can't tax that. Or the first 4,000, sorry, you can't tax that. So this is the way it should go. If we don't do this, we're not going to help our country. We're not going to help our citizens. We're not building their buying power. We're destroying their buying power. Again, you know, there are a lot of other incomes that people have. Rental of apartments, services. Those can be taxed once they're above the livable wage. If in combination with whatever else you're earning, you have a second income and it goes above the livable wage, then you should be taxed. But anything below 3,500 guilders per month, you should not be taxed. Added value. When the king came here, there were some added values given to us. Some of us might not have noticed it. Some of us did notice it. One of them was that the depth of the problem at the medical center became very clear because of the story given to the king. The media that came with the king, their mouth fell open that after 5.5 years, we are still struggling trying to finish off rebuilding St. Maarten after Hurricane Irma. People, they were baffled at what they were seeing here. They couldn't believe this, and they were saying, but how is this possible? But this time you can't blame the politicians. There are two people responsible for this. The World Bank and the donor. The donor is the Dutch. They're responsible for what's basically happening down here with that trust fund money. Nobody else. Because St. Maarten don't really have nothing to say. The only thing they could do is block it. But they can't say, do this, do this. Nah, World Bank does their own thing. Another thing that became clear was the dislike of the Dutch press and Dutch MPs for Van Huffelen. They're a little upset with her because they said, first she moved coal off the table. She in the Antilles, all she was doing down in the Caribbean there was dancing with people, giving kisses to everybody and talking about forgiving the debt. But they don't agree with that. So that's going to be another amusing something to see what's going to happen, because it's going to take a while. Elections are March 15th. I think a lot of things will change in the Netherlands and they might have a repercussion for us here. So let's wait and see. Let me not jump on the bandwagon there and start beating it up yet. But the Dutch press was kind of irritated that Van Huffelen was taking center stage in a lot of things. You can remember the video from Pic Pisas, the Prime Minister from Curaçao, and Van Huffelen dancing on a tumba. And they're saying, this was not a political something. Stay in the background. The royal family must be in front. Know your place. Very interesting. It was a very interesting observation written by one of the columnists from the Telegraaf. But I also found it interesting how the movements were going with how the country itself handled the royal visit. And they were surprised that the people were so open, so friendly, and showed genuine love for the royal house. I don't think there was ever a time that there was no genuine love. I think these are things that they are now writing about them a little bit in Holland. So, you know, that was nice. Again, like I said, the whole thing with the with giving the debt relief, they're not seeing that so. And some of the things that the Dutch were saying is, listen, we don't even have a balanced budget. There's no clarity at this point in time yet with these loans, and CFT believes that the minister must do a much better job at balancing his budget. So again, there are a lot of things that are going on in that. But the last one that I'm going to talk about in this added value was the report of the king in in the Cliffs on Thursday last week, when he says, while he understands that an apology from the royal house would have sentimental value, it won't have no legal value because apologies don't get things done. But the Rutte apology from the Prime Minister That has international value, and that is someplace where we can start a discussion to move forward on how we are going to fix what needs to be fixed. Because a lot of things need to be fixed when it comes to the whole slavery history. He said he will not be apologizing, and he hopes people understand that. So it is what it is, because again, the king said clearly he is part of the Dutch government. I decided to take a sip of water because I'm going into the airport now. Another local goes down at the airport. That's what Brian Mingo thinks. Let me say it clear and here today. That ain't gonna happen. Not amicably, not ruthlessly. Ain't gonna happen. This lady, this ad, they have an ad running, and this about this business or commercial or corporate. I don't even care which it is anymore. That lady is at TLM right now. That ad should be taken down. Let me make this very clear to you, Mr. Mingo. Audrey St. Luke Jack should get that job. And if not, I call upon all the unions at the airport to drop your tools. If you all are going to allow another foreigner to walk in and take the job of somebody that is extremely well qualified to do the job, then something is wrong with us. Audrey has been doing this job for donkey years. She is extremely good at what she does. The only reason I can think they bring in that desk lamp down there is because she got to cover up some of Mr. Mingo's wrongdoings down there. They're going to pop just now anyway. Tell them going to pop. I can tell you that one. The day Mr. Harto set foot in there in March, you're going to see people going crazy. You're going to see people start to rip out hair out of the head they ain't got. Wait. That story I'm going to deal with down the road yet. I ain't ready for TLM yet. But I am ready for the airport. Because I have a problem that we allow this stupidity, because that's all I can call it, this stupidity, this BS to continue. Look, when government-owned companies start doing this nonsense, you got a problem in your country. You have a fundamental problem in your country. And then the shareholders sit down there like lamps and do nothing. They do nothing. This is crazy. And then you have a supervisory board that has no head, no tail. They're looking for new members. They recently appointed a bunch of new members down there. When the Queen of the South and the gangster left. They appointed new people down there. Lawyers, financiers, operations experienced. And now they're looking for these people again. Did board members leave that we are not aware of? Does PGIAE have a board? A legal board right now? Because these things need to be questioned now. Because I don't understand certain things. But again, you see what's happening at the airport is what you call destroying your own. You know, often I have heard the Dutch and we nod that we don't have capacity to do certain things. And we suffer from brain drain because our people go and study and they don't come back. Come back for what? For you to do this boy, I nearly use that word here. For you to do that stupidness that you're doing to our own people, man, you should be ashamed, man. But then again, you don't have no shame box. You're just a gangster. You have no shame box whatsoever. But I can tell you something. This is going to come to an end. In good or in bad, it's going to come to an end. Something going to give this time around. Something going to give. This ain't no threat. You don't need to run to the prosecutor that I threatening you, because I'm not. You are building a target on your back that just now out of the space they can be able to see that target. You are going to be known as a local hater, a woman hater, because you don't like women, not local. This is impossible what you're doing. Mr. Brown left. And there's a lady walking in there that is competent. And in the CLA, there's an article that says when you hire from internal first. But that's not happening. You keep creating these corporate positions thinking that you can put a bunch of stooges around you to protect you so you can get an extension. You ain't getting an extension, brother. You going home. Your contract comes to an end, you going home. The minute I get back in Parliament, you could count on your 10 fingers. I call him for a full-fledged investigation on you in particular. Just like how you told me, I got enough on those boys to bury them, I got enough on you to bury you too. Let me tell it to you now. You think this game done? It's far from done. Because you are destroying local families. Enough is enough now. You know, I don't know if the good CEO understands that the game he is playing, had they played that game when they were doing the airport selection, you wouldn't even be a name to consider. Because of a little political weaseling and dealings, you get a job. You get a job, we can talk about next time. But there was a deal made. We can talk about a deal. We can talk about it. You were somebody's puppet that time, you forget? That's how you get a job. Schiphol can't fix you. They can't. You just simply can't be fixed. Others told you that already. But okay. Let me move on, because I realize that I need to go to the crux of the matter in this hiring to ensure that you understand that that lady ain't coming by you. You know why? Because she doesn't fit the criteria. And what do I mean with that? What do I mean when she doesn't fit the criteria? The good lady, and I am going to pull up her name now, Sandra Volisnova. That's her name. So now you know who I'm talking about. This lady works at Telem. And Telem signed for her to work. And Telem signed as a guarantor for her to work. Which means that there is no work permit needed. You are listening to me carefully here? Because this will get very interesting now. When you sign as a guarantor for somebody, and this happened naturally a little while back, you get a 3-year permit. That's what you normally get from justice. And they don't really stop you from working. So you can work and you don't need a work permit. And as such, VSA has no clue that you are working. And there are a lot of these permits on the island. A few hundred to be precise. So these people take up jobs from other people because they don't need a work permit. They have a guarantor signed off for it. In the past, you see, up to 2021, April 29th, 2021, they used to have the concubine regulation. Concubine regulation means that if I live with you, I fly you in as my girlfriend or whatever, I sign for you, you go to work. And they said, no, 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 no. Because you used to get a residency permit from Ministry of Justice. This present minister said, no, 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 this is craziness. You want to get a residency permit, you either married or we're going to have to do it different. And that concubine regulation was moved. So for you to get to stay on an island, you would need to be married, living with a person. And that person signs the guarantors some paper for you. Now this is where things get fishy, because she is not married to Talem. She has no work permit, yet Talem signed for her. So the onlyest logical thing I can figure out is that Talem signed the guarantors paper for her and got her the job. Now, any permit is towards the company and not the person. And now the problem is what happens now? Because this is the way she wants to go to the airport. She wants to go to the airport using that guarantors function. Because this job was created for her at the airport. Let us not mince words. The former CFO of Talem, who was a board member at the airport, who abruptly 2-3 weeks ago resigned from the airport. And which story pops up now? Cinderella leaving Talem and going to the airport. The same desk lamp that was brought into Talem by the former CFO. Because the person that had the job that she came to replace was asking questions about wrongdoings, about strange things. So that person was sent home. You see, there's a lot of crazy things going on. A lot of crazy things. But I'll tell you something. This lady Volisnova can't even speak decent English. And I don't understand why we would bring somebody like this to try and replace an asset that we have in Audrey St. Luke Jack. I don't understand it. And it irritates the hell out of me to see it happening and the government ain't saying nothing. The shareholder is saying, and please don't tell me about, oh, we don't do micromanaging. This is not micromanaging. This is stopping a gangster from covering up his crimes. Go do it in depth. I'm sure you'll be amazed what you'll find. But it was always the Mikey Hymans and the Audrey Jacks and the Carter Cromos and the Hillmans. Those we got to get rid of. And we bring in the likes of these type of people. This is a joke. This is a joke that needs to be stopped now, before it goes wrong. Again, this good lady cannot have permanent residency here. She's not married to a Dutch resident. She's not an American. These were reasons that she could have been exempted from a work permit. Those reasons. No other ones. This guarantors thing doesn't work. So I need to understand what she got by Talem. We got to get our hands on a permit like this to see what it is. I hope the Minister of Justice can give clarity. I'll WhatsApp you her name later, please. Tell the public. You don't have to tell me it. Just tell the public what's going on. Come March, when I think the good gentleman's name is Hato, he's the new CFO from Talem. He was the one going GEBE, but then he decided he done with that. When things were going crazy in GEBE, he pulled out, and he's now going to go by Talem, I understood. So then at least they will have a permanent CFO. He was the former CFO of Flow, so he has a good footing for how telecommunications go. And then we'll see. But again, this thing needs to be trashed out. It's impossible that nobody is saying nothing about what's going on here now, because this can't be possible. The way she is maneuvering cannot happen. This is against the law. And I hope all those that are involved come clean and fix this nonsense once and for all. On Saturday gone, there was a cleanup campaign at Kimsha. And why am I bringing it up? For a few reasons. Between 8 and 12, the Nature Foundation, the Heineken Regatta team, the No Kidding with Our Kids Foundation, who was celebrating 27 years of existence, and a few other organizations joined hands and decided to clean up the beach from trash. A whopping 520 kilos of garbage was collected in approximately 45 minutes. Because the day was filled with other things too. There were lectures given by the Nature Foundation, games were played with the kids there, treats was given to them, but 520 kilos of garbage was picked up on the beaches of Kimsha, from Buccaneers to Roxy Beach, excluding Roxy Beach too. The Nature Foundation threw out some numbers that caught my attention. 17 million styrofoams are used on St. Maarten per year. 16 million plastic straws are used per year. 15 million plastic bags are used per year. Why do I say those three? Because all these three are single-use items. We passed a law blocking these single-use items. Up until today, ain't happening. Styrofoam containers are used all over the island. Straws are used all over the island. Plastic bags are used all over the island. Some stores don't give it anymore, but their packers use it. So I don't understand. But yeah, now remember, they also said that St. Maarten has a whopping 9.7 kilos of garbage per inhabitant of waste. And I don't think so. I think the amount is much lower. It's about 3.5, I believe, depending how you calculate it, which numbers you use. Look, if you're using fill that has about 30,000 tons a year of greenery, that's not garbage. We gotta be careful of what we term garbage. White goods and so, I understand, I agree with you, but fill is something that we bring in specifically to cover the landfill. So that's not garbage. That's an agreement. But anyway, three kilos per inhabitant is still extremely high. When Curacao is 0.44 kilos per inhabitant. Remember, we have about a million and a half tourists that come in here also per year. So the numbers are a little different. If we would add up the tourists here, then your number drops to about 1.5, 1.2, 1.6. So again, it really depends how you calculate. If you calculate all the illegals on the island, then the number drops again. But if you just use the 40,000 that you have at statistics versus the 60,000 you have at census, you know, then the numbers they jump all over. But I agree with Nature Foundation. It's a scary number that we have to work on, and I think we need to educate our people to the 4 R's. And the 4 R's are the reduce, the reuse, the recycle, and most importantly, respect. If we don't respect our environment, it ain't gonna go no place. And that's why I liked, and that's why I'm bringing up this whole Kimsha cleanup. I liked the role that Nature Foundation played. They explained those young children what it means, what damages plastic can do to animals, sea turtles, fish. Fish eat the plastic, and then we eat the fish. So we are eating plastic, if we like it or not. That's the reality of the day. Now, I want to look at where I stand with my talk, because GEBE has a big problem. I haven't seen the GEBE budget any place yet, and I'm getting worried what's happening with GEBE's budget and a few other items. I also want to know what's going on, because GEBE's budget must reach the government regarding the water management part, the water contract part of the budget. That has to be approved by the Council of Ministers. They don't need to approve the whole budget, but they must approve the water management part of that budget. And I don't think that that has reached government yet, because I haven't heard anybody talk about this thing yet. So, again, I am a little concerned seeing what's happening with GB, with the billing and all of those things. I said, let me see what's going on. Let me talk a little bit about it, because remember, we are battling some serious fuel clause bills, and GB is busy restructuring and seeing the many problems you've had with managers and the former management. The first question I have is, when last was there even a management meeting with the managers, seeing that the company has gone through many transitions since the new arrival of the new temporary manager and his team of confidances? Because the new manager, Mr. Washington, is there now. He has brought in his confidances. There are a few new board members. Is there anything going on where all these people coming together, talking together? You're just reading the newspaper about a key role GB played in grid market and the IRP. And when you talk to the GB people, they don't have a clue what is being talked about with the grid market. So again, these things wake you up, and then you say, okay, remember, GB went to Parliament. This is what caused all this commotion in Parliament. The GB budget was one of them, and the hack, those things. Again, when will Parliament be updated with the present financial situation of GB, seeing all the previous meetings we had and the lack of information so the public can understand what's really happening? Because these things are not being spoken about. Who is actually doing the budget of GB right now? Is it GB? The people in GB? Is it? According to me, they were dealing with what do you call that company there? Grant Thornton. They were the ones doing the stuff when the Prime Minister spoke the last time. That's the name that was used. So I was listening to that video a little bit there to get some things again. It's just for me to understand, is Grant Thornton doing this? And if not, who's doing it now then? Because the budget should have been approved already. 2023 budget should have been approved already. And remember, the reason I'm saying this is when the government budget comes for approval, the 2023 amended government budget that is now by the Council of Advice, that must have in the water management contract number. Otherwise, the budget ain't real. You understand how these two are tied in? How is the billing to clients going, and how many connections aren't billed as yet? I keep hearing and reading on Facebook people stating that they haven't gotten a bill up until today. The hack was March last year. Are you all telling me that a year nearly passed and people have not been billed? How big a group is this? If this is true, how big a group is this? Because that is really scary. Are we talking about 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%? How much people have been billed? When it comes to GB's cash flow, how much money GB got? Because if people ain't being billed, how they gonna have money to pay? Because a lot of people ain't paying that fuel clause that GB has to pay. So how is this really? You see where I'm going? The company, I can remember the Prime Minister was talking about 30 million must be in reserves. Is that still the case? Do they have 30 million in reserves? Or is it because people are not being billed, they can't make the reserves anymore? Somebody has to be able to say something. But again, it is as if nobody wants to say something. Investments. You're hearing GB talking about they will have buy an engine, they gotta buy an engine, they gotta buy an engine. Can GB even do any investments this year? Seeing they want to buy a new engine. So can they invest in anything else beside the new engine? I'm talking infrastructure now. Continuing the putting the secondary lines on the ground. Getting everything on the ground now, moving all poles. Will that continue? Will the street light program continue? What about this partnership you keep hearing people talking about with LNG? This LNG usage and the modification of the engines. There was a presentation in Parliament, and some of those people live on islands, and they are talking to GEBE, or they are talking to people within GEBE, be it on the board or whatever. So what's happening from that angle? When will GEBE open its grid to alternative energy? You heard the questions I posed when I spoke about grid market from GEBE's people, where there was a 2 megawatt project ready to be financed by a local bank, but this government blocked it. How does that work with the budget when you block it as government, corporate governance? How does this work exactly? I lost. And with the budget, the centerpiece of GEBE not being there, I don't know how much we can say. How much this water management? I know you all spoke about water losses. I don't know, 22, 23%, something like that they said in Parliament, if I can remember. I think this was Mr. Dembrook when he was the temporary manager. I think it was him. If it's not him, my apologies for using that name then. But I think it was 22, 23, 24%, someplace around there. Does that still stand? Or do we have more leaks now? Or did the percentage points go down to maybe 20, 19? What is it exactly? How much water loss do we have? Because remember, somebody pays for that water loss. Yeah, we the consumers pay for that. Remember when I gave you a whole breakdown on the fuel clause calculation and how the water loss were just encompassed into the fuel clause as if nothing ever happened? And nobody ever rejected what I said because they couldn't. So in the budget, it would be nice to know what kind of water losses we got, who paying for it. Again, I don't know how GEBE is managed with the new manager. I don't know if he has a bunch of professionals that he brought in himself to get this company back up and running, and what that has as an impact on this budget, because this budget seems to not be able to get off the ground and do what it has to do, make its way to the government, for the government to check the costs involved with the water management project, and where we going from there. What about the street lights? What about that project? The savings of the street lights by putting LED, that was going to save significant on the income that they were supposed to get from government, because government would pay much less for consumption. Anything on these things? I don't know. I was happy to read that the media blitz about this lien was not correct, and a cease and desist letter was put out there. I'm very, very happy to read that, this isn't the case. So let's see. What about Mr. Washington? What about the report that you all had done, the investigative report? Some of my sources told me that it was sent to the shareholder. Shareholder has it, and the board have it already for nearly 2 months. When is the public going to be told about this report, about this hack, about bad things that happened in GEBE, before the hack, after the hack? Like how my friend Gromiko said, the Bombashi. When is the Bombashi going to be brought forward? There was a report made. Will that report be made public? You had the Aurora report. The Aurora report leaked, and we read a lot of things in there. Now this report was made. You brought in people, I would assume, to help you make this report, this investigative team. What now? Will they make a presentation to council, or will they make a presentation to parliament, as it was discussed in parliament, because it's the people's business? The report will leak anyway. So why not just have a discussion, and maybe the government can tell the people of St. Maarten what truly happened in there, and then we can see where we go from here with that. I hope that all the police officers that worked so hard during the visit of the royal family will get their overtime. I know you all are allowed to get 30 hours a month, but I hope an exemption will be made for all the hours you all put in, and God know I know you all put in a lot of hours during the few days they were here, but also before they came in preparing for a lot of things, a lot of meetings. I hope you all get back your hours. Now, people, our seniors aren't being taken care of the right way. We gotta figure out how we're gonna do this, because with the surging prices in food and the high GEBE bills that are not going to go down just now, we need to really find a way to be able to help the seniors confront the problems they have to stay afloat. We can't wish them well. We need to help them get well and stay well. I was surprised when I read the article in the newspaper of an accident that occurred on Well Road where a person lost his life. And they gave the driver wrong by saying he was the cause of the accident because he didn't have his headlights on, and if he had his headlights on, he would have been able to see the road better. The victim would have been able to see the car coming, and the accident might have been prevented. And he gets 200 hours community service, and he has to pay the funeral cost. And I'm trying to say, where exactly is the justice in this? Look, I'm not promoting to lock up anybody, but I don't understand where we're going with this. A vehicle is a weapon. Use it wrong, you can do a lot of damage. I don't know if it was an accident because they're saying it was not. He was guilty of reckless driving. He had his lights off, so he couldn't see the man couldn't see him, and he created a dangerous situation, and someone lost their life. So I don't know. I don't know how to read this. I really don't know. So, but I found it had me lost. So now we want to consider repatriating inmates that we have in Point Blanche so that they can serve their time at home and save us some very serious expenses and overcrowding at Point Blanche. Minister, I wholeheartedly support that. In the same breath, I hope that you will ask the NRPB, the World Bank, why they're throwing out $12 million to send off island. Let me wish everybody a happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. Show a little extra love. Be extra kind. You know, take care of that special person or persons in your life. You know, some people have daughters and mothers and wives, or more than one. You know, get them some nice flowers. Take them out to dinner. I don't know. Do something nice. Enjoy your weekend. Sorry, your weekend. Yeah, brain looking for rest already. Enjoy the week. It's going to be a good week, I hope. I see it's clearing up a little bit, so we're having some blue skies now instead of those overcasted skies. Please share my podcast, people. God bless. See you all next week, Monday. Bunks is out.